Hi, I'm Trantor. Welcome to the first in a series of videos that cover gold on base. This is a new whale token, and although it may have launched as a meme, it is anything but. This is one of the most interesting DeFi-related coins that I've ever seen. And even though nothing in this video is financial advice, because under no circumstances would I provide that, I do want to provide some level of explanation of what's going on with this coin and a little bit of background about what's happening, in particular the Balancer ecosystem, Aura, and what's happening with gold on base as it continues to launch on the base chain. All right, so the first thing to understand about this new coin is who everything is and what everyone is. So for starters, we've got the whale. The whale in this instance is named Humpy. Well, that's at least his nickname. He currently owns over 30% of the entirety of VBAL. So that is the vote escrowed balancer. And if you're not familiar with VE tokenomics, we can go through that a little bit later. He also owns a huge percentage of Aura. Now, Aura is another CVX type layer, so a convex type layer that exists on top of Balancer. So he also owns a huge position there in Aura and has a lot of that position currently tied up with the J Aura, so his Jones Aura, which is another compounding vault. Also, as a result of Aura Improvement Proposal number 27, this means that Humpy's able to actually utilize some of his locked Aura now to vote on particular pools and in particular ways. So what does this look like? Well, if you look at the screen here on the left, you can see Humpy, who owns over 30% as the whale. You can see Aura owns 38.5%, and then the rest of the tokens are owned by other smaller sort of DAOs or groups, maybe Tetsu or individual shrimps like you and me. At the moment, each of these different elements vote on the specific gauges, as you can see in the middle here, those balancer gauges, which currently exist on those four chains, so on Ethereum, Arbitrum, Polygon, and Optimism. However, as a result of some new moves and some recent expansions, Balancer has just increased essentially their exposure now and is launched on AVAX chain and on Base. Now, notably for what's happening on Base, this is where a lot of the opportunity arises at the moment as Balancer seeks to make a splash in the new Base ecosystem. So there's quite a bit of opportunity there that they're trying to do, and they're trying to build out within the Base ecosystem itself. So I'll talk through that shortly. In the bottom right here, you can see the basics of the vote escrow system. And if you're not familiar with that, the key is whatever particular gauge receives the most votes, or it gets a certain number of votes or percentages, that's where the majority of emissions go. So that's those balancer tokens, and it also directs where the fees are actually going to go back to as well, to those tokens. So there's a fair bit of important linkage here, because balancer wants to see significant fees, which help to actually keep the whole system running, i.e. a lot of trade volume coming through, whilst individuals want to get as many of those balancer tokens as they possibly can. So making sure that there's a high trade volume happening at the same token for these particular pools is incredibly important for moving forward. All right, so what is the opportunity on Base chain? Well, the first thing to say is on Base at the moment, there is very little USDC liquidity. And I'll show you those pools in a minute, but we're talking under sort of $2 to $3 million total in USDC. There's also significant retail and institutional interest in Coinbase at the moment, not only because of all the things happening in the US with there's legal issues, etc., but as a centralized exchange who's launched this, again, whatever the legal part is, who've launched this new chain, it's likely that essentially there's not only institutional interest, but there's also retail interest to have an easy on-ramp to the base chain. It's also highly likely that successful coins will get listed on Coinbase because they immediately get that sort of exposure, in particular on that chain, to get straight across to Coinbase itself. And then finally, the other part of this opportunity is the balancer really needs to generate fees, and so it wants to see like outsized returns and outsized interest into their actual decentralized exchange, so into their AMMs on their particular pool. So in other words, it's in Balancer's interest for people on Base to make deposits there and to start using them to trade, in particular when there's competition from groups like Uni and from Aero. So enter gold. This is the new coin. This is the DeFi coin that's on Base itself that is going to be used most likely to generate all those different things we talked about, i.e. to build up trade volume and to build up what Balancer really needs to keep things moving forward. Notably, though, it's also a coin that's been launched by Humpy. So it's going to have that sort of linkage in how he hopes to best make potential outsized returns for himself. So the coin itself, it started as a meme coin, but did it really? So even though it came across as initially just a meme with this sort of egg-headed little character here who is meant to be the Humpy, it started that way, but the intention, I think, was always really to have this particular coin, gold, act as a sort of central hub or central voting option for a variety of different gauges and pools that were going to help align Humpy's votes with the interests of Balancer. In other words, to make sure that his votes and his emissions are going towards pools that generate high fees. Now, notably, it's his coin. He has a significant quantity of it, but he's renounced a fair bit of it, and there's now a multi-sig that actually controls the coin. And I can go into security of the coin, etc., at a different time to talk through some of those things. The DeFi-focused nature of this coin is essentially gold is meant to be put in locations or places, much like this picture on the right here, where it's at the central hub of significant liquidity pools, and I'll talk about that shortly. And then finally, this coin is launched on base, but we can expect that it likely will expand. So we can see it expand in the near future, probably to chains that Balancer already has a presence on, and then you may see wrapped versions of the coin develop on other different chains in the near future. All right, the basic tokenomics. It is not there's not a lot of gold out there in summary. So the original supply is 1 million, 250,000 of that has already been burnt, with another 500,000 sort of tied up in incentives to be distributed for various things over the next little while, with a circulating supply of 250,000 gold. This gives it a current market cap of just over 3 million, and I'll talk to some of the price action shortly. But key here is it's still quite a small token, small numbers. And then finally, what actually makes this thing a DeFi coin? And I'll show you that in a moment. But the key part is that it's got balancer gauges upcoming, and that's one of the big catalysts. It's got Humpy's vote weight behind it, in other words, to generate significant votes onto those actual coins themselves. Finally, it's looking at how you can tie in the emissions, and in particular, that liquidity on USDC and the actual balancer token. So this is the stuff that's going to make it very interesting. If I can be as clear as possible, Humpy has significant vote weight and controls a fair chunk of aura and fair chunk of actual VBAL. He will be able to put vote weight, significant vote weight, on any particular pool that has gold in it, in particular on the base chain. That leads to outsized returns, which leads to more people wanting to get into that pool, of course, to get more and more of those balancer tokens. So I'll explain some of that now a little bit more directly. Now, if we go across to the first piece, you can see the Golden Boys coin here. This is the coin. So it's gold or Golden Boys on base. It's had some significant pumps in the last sort of 24 to 48 hours. It's up 40%. And here's its basics here. You can see the rest of it here. All-time high is at $13, which isn't too long ago. It was only about 2 hours ago. And then you've got all-time low at around 760. Noting, of course, that it launched at about $2. Now, I talked to you previously about USDC and the opportunity there. If you go across to Uniswap, USDC to USDBC has only really got a TVL of about 7.8 thousand. And if you type in here to other pools, there's really only this pool here of 7.8. You then go across to Aerodrome and have you look USDC here as well. You can see, again, very limited liquidity depth. So we're looking at a grand total here of about just under 3 million total in USDC liquidity tied in with USDBC. So very little in terms of actual USDC, which is, not surprisingly, a very important stablecoin that currently exists here on base. Now, if we go across and have a look at some of the things that make this interesting, these are the new pools that are currently being designed and potentially voted on. If we go across to Balancer here, you can look at the snapshot and you can see this, add initial gauges. So add initial avalanche and base gauges. This is the thing that's causing some of the, I suppose, additional interest at the moment. And if you scroll down to the new gauges requested, you can see that on base, scroll all the way down here, on base is these two pools in particular. So you've got USDC and USDBC pools up here on base, but you've then also got gold wrapped ETH USDC. So this is a pool with gold, and then you've got a 33, 33, 33. So this is 50, 25, 25. This is an even split of third with gold, balancer, and USDC. So you can see already there's significant percentages here for these pools with a maximum vote weight of 10% and 2% for both of these pools together. Now, to explain to you what that means real quickly, this pool here, capped at 10%, that's capped at 10% of all of the balancer emissions that can occur across all chains. Right? That's a significant number, and this is 2% for that. To describe this a little bit further, so this pool here with 10%, if you go across to Balancer tokenomics here, you can see now we're in 2023, and if you look at total BAL supply versus the BAL emitted weekly, if you go across here about halfway through 2023, we should be looking at around about on the left-hand side here, between 100 and probably around about 110,000. Right, so with 110,000 balancer emitted weekly to across all gauges, 10% of that, so we're looking at 11,000 balancer tokens emitted just to a single pool as a maximum, and that was that pool I just talked to you about before with the 10% cap. At a current value of $3.39, you're looking at what's that? $36,000 worth of emissions, just emissions, not including even trade fees, going directly to that pool. Now, the pools I'm talking about, we come back across here to Balancer now, we can see what exists. The current pools, this is the staking pool at 99 and 1. This is the one where if you don't want to have impermanent loss, you can just stake your gold and get your 12% returns. Otherwise, you've got your wrapped ETH gold pool, which is the current liquidity pool, currently generating extremely high returns as a result of staking, as a result of all the trading that's been going on the last little while. And then you've got these two new pools, which are the new pools of those gauges I just described before that are currently up for vote. You can expect in the next little while, people start to take a significant interest in these pools in particular, as they start to get a little more, more deposits. But then once those actual gauges go live and emissions start coming there, that's when you can expect these to get significantly more deposits in the next little while. Again, world according to me. Notably, both of these pools, this has the wrapped ETH USDC and it has the balancer. This is one of the primary places now that you'll see balancer liquidity being actually seeded onto the base chain itself. So again, fascinating stuff to see how much focus is being put on that particular, on this particular coin, this gold coin sitting in the middle of DeFi. There's in addition to that, there's, hold on, if we head across to the actual, this is the final piece I'll show you. We head across to the website, so goldonbase.eth.limo. This is the Golden Boys website. It goes through some basics, gives you the price, it gives you, how you can buy it, etc., and the two LPs. But notably, you can click here on Humpy's wallet, and this is what gives you the best understanding of who this whale is. I'm convinced he has additional wallets, but I will just highlight here. You can go through and you can have a look at what he's got on a variety of different chains, and you can see his total holdings. Wanted to highlight a few things really quickly. 14 million on Balancer, an additional 10.5 million currently on Aura. And if you look at the different locations for Aura, you can also find it. He's got it on Polygon. He's got, which is probably in Tetsu. He's got it on Arbitrum, etc. So he's got significant deposits there. And if you look down to Jones DAO, which is just here, you'll note he also has 850,000 Aura tokens sitting in their vault as well. So the reason I bring all this up is this is a wallet that owns significant percentages of what's happening in Aura and what's happening in Balancer, and as such can direct vote weight where basically he desires to do it. The gold token itself is clearly a place where he intends to have those votes go. And I don't speak for him, that's for sure. But he intends for the vote weight to go to those locations. And that's what's causing so much interest at the moment in this particular coin. Now, there's a lot more going on, of course, with Gold on Base. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to leave me a comment down below. And I'll get back to you and have another look in the next video. Thanks very much.